Okay, modelers, so this part of the video I'm going to be talking about working with vinyl or rubber tracks as they come to be known. Now, we all know it as modelers, these are horrible bloody things to work with. We'd rather the individual tracks now because you can put the sag in them, you can get the disc look more realistic around the road wheels and that. But vinyl tracks doesn't mean that it's going to ruin the whole model. You can actually get them to put sag and stuff. Now, hopefully you can see that clear enough on the camera here. I'm trying a different focus technique on this camera, so hopefully that's going to focus enough for you. You can see there, now that's just the vinyl track, and I've got it to get a little bit of sag and stuff like that. You can see the gap in where the joint is, but I'm going to fill that up with weathering powders and try and make that disappear. Now, a lot of times with armour you have plates up over the tops of these wheels and you won't see that anyway, so it's going to be hidden and you don't have to worry about the sag. But on a tank like this, a lot of the World War II stuff especially, you had tracks that sagged. Now, the Russian tracks didn't sag a lot. There's probably a bit too much sag in this, but I wanted to be able to put this in here just so you guys get the idea of what you can achieve just with your vinyl tracks. Now, the tricks to working with these particular tracks can actually be glued together end to end on here just with the Tamiya super thin glue, the extra thin stuff that I use. I'm just going to try and change the focus on this, guys, because it's not really working too well, so just give me a second. Okay, now a lot of the tracks, the rubber tracks and that, won't work with that glue. You'll have to use super glue or something like that, and that joint is always weak. Okay, so you'll join it up, put a bit of tension on it to go and put it on there, and it'll pull that joint apart. Now, one of the tricks for doing that is putting a staple in there. Okay, now you can do that and get away with it because that joint, just so long as you know where it's going to be on the armour, you can hide that joint, or you can put the staple just on the inside of these centre teeth here. Put the staple on the inside and super glue the rest, and hope that'll hold it. If it doesn't, you have to put a staple on both sides and try and hide that joint somewhere where you're not going to see it, or weather it up. Because it's a track, you can put a bit of mud over it or something like that if you like. But that's just one tip I found for tracks that you just cannot seem to glue them together. You can get different rubber cements and things like that that got a little bit of give so they won't break, but the problem is they pull apart and leave a big gap there. But like I say, just try the different glues. Like this one here, I found the extra thin cement worked well on this. It actually melted the plastic. I pushed it together, held it there with a peg until it dried, and it's just as strong as the rest of the track. Well, probably not just as strong, but pretty strong to join that together. Or if I hadn't had a failed at that, would have put a dab of super glue there and then whacked a staple in one side of it. Okay, so that's how to join them. Now, to get the sag that I've got inside there, that's just a little trick I picked up on the internet quite a while ago now, and I've been using it for a while, and it does work really well. It's just a thin bit of copper wire, okay? And what I do, I glue it on the inside of those teeth, okay, just down on one side like so. Okay, now you don't have to have that on both sides, just one side should be enough to give you that sag and hold it. Once you bend that wire with the track, it'll actually sag and hold that sag. Now, the thicker the wire, obviously, the more sag it's going to hold. I've used a fairly delicate piece here so you won't see it. Now, you don't go around the whole track with this. Only put it on the top where you want the sag to be and on the inside. That way, it'll be very, very hard to spot it on the finished model to look up underneath there and see it. If you put it all the way around, you definitely will be able to see it down here along the bottom. So try and put it up around the top where you want the sag. Down the bottom's not so much a problem because you don't want that to sag. It'll probably be on flat ground. Now, if you want it on rocky ground, obviously you're going to have to find a way of bending that up and getting the sag to hold there. I have used super glue in that case on the inside and made a little bit of a sag where there's a rock or something like that. So that's just a little trick there. Now, there's different ways. People do this in different ways. You can put the track on first. I put that one on first just so you guys can see that in action. Or you can actually put the wire in, paint the model and paint the tracks and then put them on after. Now, the only problem with that is where the joint is, obviously it's going to knock the paint and stuff off, but because it's going to be somewhere you choose to put it where it's going to be fairly well hidden, it shouldn't matter too much, and you can also just whack a bit more dust over it to cover it up. So the option's yours, guys. Whichever way you find easy to do it, paint it on there or paint it off and then put it on later. It's honestly, it's up to you. Now, one of the things, if you put it on afterwards, it can be a little bit hard sometimes to line up those teeth on the tracks will actually not want to go inside to the grooves and inside the road wheels. So you have to get like a fine file or something like a nail file, push in there and just make sure those little notches go inside the tracks properly, inside the running wheels properly. Okay guys, so hopefully that's helped you with working with vinyl tracks. I think I've covered everything there. If I think of anything else, I'll turn the video back on and I'll cover whatever I need to. Just one more quick thing, just check your tracks first, because depending on whether you had to cut them off a rubber piece and you have to trim up those little notches where you cut them off or whatever, sometimes you'll have little injector pin marks and things you got to look for before you do it. Do them now before you do any work on it. Try and get rid of those now. Okay guys, hopefully that's it. Hopefully that's covered that topic fairly well for you, and you can see the result there. And I sort of don't want to show you me putting this together and doing that, because it's going to be really hard with this camera to get close up enough, and at the angle I've got to work at, it's going to be a bit hard. But that's all I've done is put that bit of wire on the inside there, and make sure it is to the inside. When you put it on, it'll be to the inside and the top, so you won't see it. And then I've just gone through, and what I've done to do it in a bit of a rhythm, where what I do, just to focus for you. Okay, so I'd start on the first one here. I'll put a bit of super glue on the top of the road wheel, and on that track I'll put a toothpick in there to hold that down. Then do the next one the same way, and then that sag, I put a toothpick in there, push down a little bit, not too hard because you don't want to break anything. Push down a little bit and let the toothpick sit in there for about 10 minutes or so, and I'll leave that sag in there for you, and go along the whole lot and get the whole lot like that. So that's all I do, guys, to do that, to put those on there. There's not any great tricks or anything like that. It's just a fairly standard sort of procedure.